The courtroom was deathly silent. The judge's gavel came down hard, delivering the verdict that would change Daniel Brooks' life forever. Guilty. A decorated police officer with 15 years on the force, Daniel sat in handcuffs, his head bowed. Despite his repeated claims of innocence, the jury had ruled against him. The evidence had been stacked too perfectly, almost as if someone had carefully planted it. Deep down, Daniel knew he had been framed. But the weight of the sentence wasn't what crushed him most. It was knowing he had to leave Max behind. At the back of the courtroom, Max, his loyal German Shepherd K9 partner, sat motionless, his sharp brown eyes locked on Daniel. Over the years, Max had been more than just a partner. He had been Daniel's protector, his friend, his family. Now, as Daniel faced the lowest moment of his life, the thought of never seeing Max again was unbearable. As the judge rose from his seat, Daniel's voice broke through the tense silence. "Your Honor," he said, his voice cracking. "Before I'm taken away, I have one last request. Please, let me say goodbye to Max." A murmur of surprise rippled through the courtroom. The judge hesitated, studying Daniel's face. Finally, after a long pause, he gave a slow nod. 3 minutes. The moment Max was released, the dog sprinted toward Daniel. His claws clicked loudly on the floor as he lunged forward, pressing his head against his handler's chest. Daniel dropped to his knees, pulling Max into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry, buddy," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I let you down." But then, something changed. Max's body tensed. His nose twitched, sniffing frantically against Daniel's jacket. Suddenly, the German Shepherd barked sharply, his head jerking toward the fabric. The sound shattered the solemn silence. And in that moment, everything changed. The sharp bark echoed through the courtroom, startling everyone. Max wasn't just reacting, he had found something. The German Shepherd's nose worked frantically against Daniel's jacket. He tugged at the fabric, his sharp claws scratching at Daniel's chest. "Max, what is it?" Daniel whispered, confused. The tension in the room became suffocating. "What's the dog doing?" the judge asked, his voice wary. Max barked again, louder this time, refusing to back down. His sharp eyes locked onto Daniel's jacket as if trying to warn everyone of something hidden. One of the officers stepped forward cautiously, his brow furrowed. "Sir, we need to check his jacket." The bailiff hesitated, then nodded. "Go ahead." The officer carefully ran his hands over the fabric. Then, a metallic clink. Something fell to the floor. The entire courtroom gasped as a small black recording device rolled across the marble tiles. A heavy silence filled the room. Daniel's heart pounded as he stared at it. Where had that come from? The judge's eyes narrowed. "Pick it up." The officer knelt, scooping the device into his palm. His hands trembled as he held it up for all to see. "What is this?" the judge demanded, his tone razor-sharp. A flicker of panic crossed the prosecutor's face. His skin had gone pale. "Your Honor," the prosecutor stammered, stepping forward quickly. This is irrelevant. It's not part of the case. It must have been planted." Max barked again, a deep, powerful sound that commanded attention. The truth was clear. Whatever was on that recording, it mattered. The courtroom was frozen in stunned silence. The small black recorder lay in the officer's palm, its metallic casing glinting under the harsh fluorescent lights. Every pair of eyes was locked on it, the air thick with tension. "Activate the device," the judge ordered, his voice low but firm. The officer's hands trembled as he pressed the play button. A static crackle filled the room, followed by muffled voices. Everyone leaned forward, straining to listen. Then, the words hit like a bombshell. "Just plant the evidence. No one's going to question it. Carter's clean record makes him the perfect scapegoat. Get it done." Gasps erupted across the courtroom. Daniel's heart stopped. Then, it slammed against his ribs. He knew that voice. Captain Ray Harding. The man who had been his mentor. The man who had testified against him. The prosecutor's face turned ghostly white. "That doesn't prove anything," he snapped, rushing toward the officer holding the recorder. Desperation dripped from his voice. "Sit down." The judge's gavel slammed against the bench, his voice like a knife. The prosecutor froze mid-step. Daniel clenched his fists. He had been right all along. He had been set up. Max let out a low growl, his sharp gaze locked onto the prosecutor like he could sense his fear. The judge leaned back in his chair, his expression dark. "This trial is not over," he said firmly. Officers, secure that device. Escort the defendant back to holding. We are reopening this case." For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt something flicker in his chest. Hope. Back in his cold holding cell, Daniel sat on the hard bench, staring at the blank concrete wall. His mind raced with everything that had just happened. Max had found the truth. That recording, his lifeline, proved that the evidence had been planted. But the relief was short-lived. Captain Ray Harding, a man Daniel had trusted, was behind it all. Daniel clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. How deep did this conspiracy go? And who else was involved? Meanwhile, inside the judge's chambers, tension hung thick in the air. The judge sat at his desk, replaying the damning recording on a secure device. The voices were unmistakable. Harding had orchestrated everything. But he hadn't acted alone. The judge's expression darkened. He pressed a button on his intercom. "Summon Captain Harding." Immediately. Harding confronted. Outside the courtroom, Captain Harding sat confidently, waiting for Daniel to be transferred to prison. But when an officer approached him, there was no satisfaction in their eyes. "The judge wants to see you. Now." A flicker of unease crossed Harding's face. He rose stiffly, adjusting his tie, and followed the officer down the hall. Inside the chambers, the judge's expression was unreadable. Harding forced a polite nod, but his shoulders were tense. "You called for me, Your Honor." The judge tapped the small recorder on his desk. "Care to explain this?" For the first time, Harding's confidence cracked. His face drained of color as the judge pressed play. The damning words filled the room. Harding was trapped. And he knew it. Inside the judge's chambers, Captain Harding's face went pale as the recording played. His fingers twitched slightly, but he quickly forced a smirk. This could be anyone, he scoffed. You can't seriously think. I don't think, Captain, the judge interrupted, his voice razor-sharp. I act on evidence. And this, he gestured at the recorder, is evidence of a crime. Before Harding could respond, 2 officers stepped forward. Captain Ray Harding, you are being detained for questioning, one officer said. You are now a suspect in obstruction of justice and falsifying evidence. Harding's mask of arrogance slipped. You can't do this, he barked, stepping back as the officers grabbed his arms. I built this department. The judge didn't flinch. Take him away. Meanwhile, at the K-9 unit, Max wasn't done uncovering the truth. Daniel's loyal German shepherd had been taken to the department's K-9 unit, where Officer Sarah Mitchell, one of Daniel's closest colleagues, had volunteered to look after him. But Max was restless. He paced inside his kennel, occasionally whimpering and pawing at the bars. Sarah watched him closely, sensing his unease. Then, Max did something strange. As Sarah crouched near his kennel, Max started sniffing her jacket. His nose worked frantically, his ears perked in full alert. A cold chill ran down Sarah's spine. Was he trying to tell her something? Following her gut, she grabbed Max's leash. All right, buddy, she whispered, leading him to the department's storage room. Let's see what you're trying to show me. Max immediately pawed at Daniel's old locker. Sarah's hands trembled as she unlocked it. Inside, beneath a pile of uniforms, was a small, unmarked envelope. Her heart raced as she pulled it open. Inside were photographs, grainy but damning. Captain Harding meeting with a known criminal. And behind the photos, a document outlined bribery transactions, ones that had led to Daniel's wrongful arrest. Sarah's breath hitched. She knelt down, stroking Max's fur. You just found the smoking gun, boy. Sarah stared at the damning evidence in her hands. The photos, the financial records, the documents, everything pointed to a deeper conspiracy. Captain Harding hadn't just framed Daniel. He had been working with criminals for years, covering up crimes, taking bribes, and manipulating the system to protect himself and his allies. Sarah's hands shook as she flipped through the documents. This isn't just about Daniel, she murmured. This goes way deeper. A call for justice. Wasting no time, Sarah rushed to the judge's office. Within the hour, the evidence was in his hands. The judge's expression darkened as he reviewed the photos and financial records. He looked up, his jaw tight. This is bigger than I thought, he admitted. If these documents are accurate, Daniel Brooks isn't just innocent, he's a victim of a department-wide cover-up. The case reopens. An emergency hearing was ordered. The news of Captain Harding's corruption scandal spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the entire police department. Officers whispered in hallways, tensions rising as names of other corrupt officials started to surface. Meanwhile, in his holding cell, Daniel was called out unexpectedly. As he entered a secure room, his eyes widened. Sarah was there. And so was Max, his loyal K-9 partner. Beside them, the judge placed a thick folder on the table. This just came in, he said, sliding the documents toward Daniel. It proves Harding's corruption. Most importantly, it proves the evidence against you was fabricated. Daniel's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. His voice cracked. Does this mean? The judge nodded firmly. It means you're going free. Daniel sat frozen, staring at the stack of evidence before him. It was all there, the proof that had been missing, the documents that had the power to clear his name. His heart pounded as he flipped through the pages. Max sat by his side, his ears perked, his sharp eyes locked on Daniel's face. It was as if he knew what was happening. The judge's voice was steady. You're free, Daniel. But this isn't over. The words hung in the air. Daniel swallowed hard, trying to process the moment. After weeks of betrayal, humiliation, and despair, he was finally being vindicated. But instead of relief, a new feeling settled in his chest: determination. Captain Harding may have been caught, but he hadn't acted alone. There were others, higher-ranking officials, corrupt officers, and criminals who had benefited from the lies. Daniel looked at the judge. What happens now? He asked. The judge leaned forward. The investigation isn't over. We need to bring down everyone involved. He studied Daniel carefully. And we need your help. Daniel clenched his fists. He had spent his entire career believing in the system. Now, that system had betrayed him. But instead of walking away, he knew exactly what he needed to do. His gaze shifted to Max, who wagged his tail slightly, sensing the shift in his partner's resolve. Daniel took a deep breath. I'm in. But not for the department. I'm doing this for the truth. The judge nodded. The battle wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. Stepping outside the courthouse, Daniel Brooks took his first breath as a free man. The air felt crisp, but the weight in his chest hadn't lifted. He wasn't just walking out of a holding cell, he was walking into a war. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, microphones shoved toward his face. Mr. Brooks, how does it feel to be exonerated? Do you have a message for Captain Harding? What will you do next? Daniel ignored them, his focus locked on Max trotting faithfully by his side. His loyal K-9 partner, the one who had saved him, the one who had never doubted his innocence. Sarah caught up to him, matching his pace. We need your help, Daniel. No one knows the department better than you. Daniel hesitated. He had spent 15 years believing in the badge, believing in the honor of serving. But now, he knew the truth: the corruption ran deeper than just Captain Harding. Still, as he looked down at Max's sharp, unwavering eyes, he felt something ignite inside him. I'm in, Daniel finally said. But not for the department. I'm doing this for the truth. And for every good cop still fighting for what's right. Sarah nodded, a look of relief crossing her face. The investigation begins. That night, Daniel and Sarah sat in a small, dimly lit office inside the courthouse, reviewing the files Max had helped uncover. Every document, every bribery record, every erased case led back to one thing: a larger conspiracy. As they dug deeper, one name kept appearing. Ark. Whoever they were still out there. And Daniel was going to find them. The dimly lit office was silent except for the sound of papers rustling. Sarah and Daniel sifted through stacks of documents, piecing together the truth behind the corruption. Max sat nearby, his ears twitching at every noise outside. He was on edge. And Daniel knew why. They weren't just investigating Harding anymore. They were exposing something much bigger. "Look at this," Sarah muttered, pointing to a document. It was an old case file, a drug bust from 5 years ago. The officers in charge of this operation all have their names redacted. Why? Daniel took the file, flipping through it. His jaw tightened as he saw one familiar signature at the bottom. Captain Ray Harding. This was never a real drug bust, Daniel murmured. It was a cover-up. Sarah exhaled sharply. That means Harding wasn't working alone. Daniel nodded. If Harding was willing to frame an innocent cop, what else had he done to protect the people pulling the strings? Max suddenly lifted his head, letting out a low growl. Daniel's instincts flared to life. A second later, his phone buzzed on the table. A blocked number. He answered. A distorted voice spoke. "You're digging too deep. Walk away, Brooks. Or you'll regret it." A chill ran through Daniel's spine. He could feel Sarah staring at him, waiting for his response. He tightened his grip on the phone and answered calmly. "Come and stop me." The line went dead. Max let out a short bark, as if agreeing with him. Daniel turned to Sarah. "We're close. And they know it." The tension in the small office was suffocating. Daniel set his phone down, his jaw clenched. Sarah's eyes narrowed. That was a threat. Daniel exhaled sharply. That was a warning. Max, still on high alert, padded toward the door, his ears perked. He let out another low growl, a clear sign that something was off. Sarah grabbed her gun from the desk. "They know we're close. We need to move." Daniel nodded, his mind racing. Whoever had called them was more than just a scared corrupt cop. This was someone pulling the strings from the shadows. And that meant they were being watched. "Let's get out of here," Daniel said, stuffing the most important files into his bag. Just as they turned toward the door. Boom. The windows shattered as an explosion erupted outside. The office shook violently, sending papers and debris flying. Max barked fiercely, pressing close to Daniel's side. Sarah coughed, waving the dust away. What the hell was that? Daniel rushed to the broken window. Smoke billowed from the parking lot, flames engulfing what was left of Sarah's car. It wasn't an accident. Someone had planted a bomb. Sarah's face went pale. "They're not just warning us, Daniel. They're trying to kill us." Daniel turned to her, his expression stone cold. "Then we hit back." He looked down at Max, who stood firm, his eyes sharp and ready for the fight ahead. They weren't backing down. Whoever was behind this had just made it personal. As we move into 2025, the story of Daniel Brooks and Max serves as a powerful reminder of the timeless fight for justice, the importance of loyalty, and the resilience of the human spirit. In a world where corruption can hide in the shadows, this story teaches us that the truth will always find a way to the surface, if we have the courage to seek it. One of the greatest lessons from this story is the importance of standing up for what is right, even when the odds are against us. Daniel was a man who believed in the integrity of the system, yet he found himself betrayed by it. Instead of giving up, he fought back, proving that no matter how powerful corruption may seem, it can be exposed with determination, intelligence, and courage. This message resonates deeply in modern society, where people continue to challenge injustice, demand accountability, and fight for ethical leadership. Another key takeaway is the unbreakable bond between man and his loyal companion. Max, Daniel's K-9 partner, never doubted his innocence, and in the end, it was Max's instincts that led to the truth. This highlights the profound connection between humans and animals, a lesson in trust, devotion, and unwavering loyalty. As we step into the future, this story reminds us that persistence, teamwork, and truth-seeking are the keys to overcoming adversity. In a world where misinformation spreads easily, it is more important than ever to seek the truth, trust those who stand by us, and never stop fighting for justice. Because, just like Daniel and Max, when we stand together, we win. Daniel Brooks has fought against corruption, betrayal, and danger, but his battle isn't over yet. With Max by his side, he has uncovered the dark truth behind the department's corruption, but the people pulling the strings are still out there. Now, they've made it personal. What do you think Daniel's next move should be? Should he take his evidence straight to federal investigators and expose the entire network? Should he go underground and gather more proof before making his next move? Should he confront Ark, the mastermind behind it all, and demand the truth? Or does he need to disappear for now before they come after him again? Your voice matters. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think Daniel should do next. Your insights and theories could shape the direction of this thrilling story. Want to support Daniel's fight for justice? Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. And if you believe in standing up for the truth, share this story with someone who would love it. Daniel has come too far to back down now, but what happens next is up to you. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments.